Next up, in Chapter 6 of Mastering Meditation, we'll jump around to a few different parts so we can go ahead and wrap up the rest of this chapter in this one video. So first up, he's talking about what I like to think of as being neuroplasticity, although like the negative form of it, where he points out how if we spend less time dwelling on these negative feelings and emotions, the neural pathway that leads to us feeling like that can actually be weakened. So like the opposite of metta or love and compassion styles of meditation, where they have brought in some of these monks or long-term practitioners of that style of meditation into the lab, hooked them up to EEGs, I think, basically something that can read their mind as they're doing their meditation practice. And some of them, their results were crazy and they looked like the happiest people on earth because those neural pathways were strengthened so much. But anyways, he writes, I mentioned before that the right amygdala is a center of fear. My theory is that all negative emotions are supported by this fear. So he's going to talk about how you can actually shrink that. And I guess Navikriya specifically, which I covered in a recent video, I think the previous video in this series, I'm not too sure, but he points out how that in particular can shrink your right amygdala. So by practicing one round of Navikriya before every dedicated meditation time, you are daily shrinking the right amygdala. What would your life look like without fear? When you have a choice between getting angry for hours or letting it pass you by, as much as possible let it pass you by. Each time you are able to do this, you are shrinking the right amygdala. With a little effort, you will greatly reduce being stuck in anger, sadness, fear, hurt, and guilt. And that really gets at what I think of as being like one of the main benefits of having a meditation practice is you can learn how to and become more skilled with being able to drop some of these negative thoughts and emotions that are stuck in your head. Now, of course, a really sticky negative thought is going to be harder to drop than others, but nonetheless, having this skill and knowing that it's possible to do that, like the half-life on feelings is really short. Once you stop thinking about something, generally all the feelings and negative emotions, or even positive emotions, if it's a happy memory that are linked up to it, basically evaporate immediately. And then to wrap this thing up, the last thing he talks about is Neuro-Linguistic Programming, or NLP, and he brings up this pattern interrupt technique that they have, where basically, say if somebody is, I think the example he used is somebody walks into work and there's some mean person at work who always stresses out this person. And so you just basically run them through what they feel like when they go into work and this happens. And then as they retell you the story, you throw in some other random detail in there to kind of interrupt this pattern of thinking. And then that's supposed to help, break this automatic reaction to when they walk into work. It just makes this negative cascade of events happen, whether it's in their head or not, and then they feel like crap. So I probably did a terrible job of explaining pattern interrupt. Google it if you're interested. I actually am really interested in NLP, or at least I was, like high school time-ish. Remember back around then, I first figured out about NLP, and there was like this online thing you could sign up for. And so I signed up for it and they sent me this email, right? And I had no idea what to expect when I was initially reading this email. It was like this story that you were, like flying through these magical waterfalls and getting like powered up from something within these magical waterfalls and whatnot. And whatever it was though, it worked on me amazingly well the first time I did it. Like I was reading it and by the time it was over, I had this weird body high going on. It was almost like, it was almost like a religious type of experience. I remember like feeling like I was on the verge of having like happy tears. It was just this really weird experience to just stumble into. And then after that, I tried to reread it to recapture that same feeling, and I never could again. I really wish I saved that email. I did not. So I don't know where that thing is. Granted, it was a good like 20 plus years ago when this happened anyway. But nonetheless, I still remember it clearly, and that's what really got me interested in NLP. I picked up a couple books at the time, read it some, but since then never really dove back in. However, anytime I hear somebody talk about NLP, it always makes me want to dive back in and start exploring that again. So maybe that will be coming up in the future. If anybody knows any good NLP books, that might be a good book to kind of dive into and do a breakdown on the channel. So maybe I'll be doing that in the future. Who knows? But with that said, that wraps up chapter 6. And until the next video, keep your meditation practice legit.